Okay, now we're going to be talking about how groups have been used to affect change in terms of helping people, in terms of therapy, in terms of support. And so we'll talk about some of the ways groups have promoted change. Three approaches talked about in the textbook: therapeutic groups, interpersonal learning groups, and support groups. So let's start with therapeutic groups. We've got different psychological different approaches to therapy have been now applied for groups. Like psychoanalysis has been applied has been applied for groups. Gestalt therapy, psychodrama, interpersonal group psychotherapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy. And we'll talk about all of these different types of therapy groups. So basically with these groups, though, obviously, if we're talking about people who need help with various psychological problems, with stress, or whatnot, therapy, instead of seeing the therapist one-on-one, they are seeing the therapist as a group with other people who might be suffering from similar conditions. So with psychoanalysis, well, basically with psychoanalysis, the idea is to delve into someone's unconscious mind, essentially the unconscious part of your memory, essentially, that is outside of your consciousness. So you're not consciously aware of these conflicts that might be going on, but you've kept these hidden within you. And the idea is to dig deep and try to find where these unconscious conflicts are coming from, to express it in a safe environment, and that's the process of transference, where the client who is maybe has this unconscious conflict, and maybe there's an individual that the person has this secret conflict with. Well, in a therapy session, the client can essentially play the role and transfer those feelings and whatnot toward the therapist in that safe environment. So essentially allowing those issues to get resolved. Okay. In addition, the person looks at early experiences, kind of reflects on those early experiences, and try to make sense of them. Also, one of the things that happens in psychoanalysis is catharsis, and this is where you kind of have that emotional release in a therapy session. That essentially, once you've released that energy, it presumably allows you to kind of deal with it and reflect on it and be able to move on from it. Anyway, but that's basically the psychoanalysis. But in group psychoanalysis, this is done would be done with other people present rather than just the therapist and the client. So, now Freud didn't practice this, but nevertheless, it has been applied to groups. Gestalt group psychotherapy. Gestalt therapy is involving trying to look at the pattern of your life, looking at thoughts, feelings, behaviors as one package, as one pattern, and being able to accept that as all of those components as one coherent whole. And again, this has been done in individual therapy, and it's been done as group therapy. And again, the idea is to achieve unity, to achieve the sense of wholeness. That's what Gestalt is trying to do. Psychodrama is more or less role-playing in a therapeutic environment, and in some ways similar to maybe what might go on in transference in psychoanalysis. But basically, it's more like you're playing the role, and by acting this out, you're kind of exploring your feelings and whatnot in this acting out. And again, this could be done in groups, interacting with other members of groups, different group members playing different roles. So it essentially how this might be an advantage over individual therapy is that oftentimes the psychodrama, the real life drama involves multiple people. So if you're reenacting this in a therapy session, you need multiple people to be doing it. So it's actually not a bad idea in that respect. Interpersonal group therapy. So the group allows, where people learn from each other, they help each other out, they influence each other, and they learn about how they are influenced by others. So the group is interactive, and they are, they're in the here and now. It is so they're not necessarily, kind of trying to dig back into childhood, but they are just existing right now and talking and interacting right now in that moment. And what this does is it helps people learn about how they interact with others, and it provides practice, and it can be applied in real life as well. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Essentially, with cognitive behavioral therapy, is trying to change the way you think and act. In other words, when we are struggling, when we are having difficulties, oftentimes we are having thoughts that are not very helpful for our benefit. That they may be illogical, they may be self-defeating thoughts. And when you're having these self-defeating thoughts, I'm no good at this, I'm never going to be successful, that kind of thing, it's obviously not going to be helping you to do the things you need to do for being successful. So cognitive behavioral therapy tries to change the way you think. Now, the behavior part of it is also trying to change the way you act, trying to learn new behaviors to replace old, ineffective behaviors. You might have been engaging in behaviors that haven't been very helpful to you. So now trying to train you to learn new behaviors, often involving giving you homework assignments and stuff like that. Now, in a group setting, you're now putting this, setting these circumstances, creating the role plays, creating, presenting cases for modeling where you can, watch and follow somebody else's behavior. You're able to rehearse. You're able to practice, adaptive behaviors with the other members of the group. So again, and again, if other people are sharing the same kind of problem, having the same kind of maladaptive thoughts and behaviors, you're all learning from each other, and you're all practicing with each other as far as how to change your behavior for the better, and how to change your thought processes for the better as well. Process debriefing has been used for in groups for people who may have suffered some kind of a traumatic, where a group might have suffered from some kind of a traumatic circumstance. Again, you think about like post-Katrina, for example, people suffering from that. So they're working together, getting together into a group, reflecting on the experience, making connections with other survivors, with other people experiencing the same thing, and essentially this is what the process debriefing is about. Okay. So again, those are the therapeutic groups, and again, just recognizing that many of the types of therapy that have been, that's been applied one-on-one can be applied to groups. Not in every case, but in many cases. Interpersonal learning groups, these are where people can learn more about themselves, kind of like self-improvement type type groups. Some of the contemporary experiential learning, skill building retreats, going on these retreats to try to learn a particular skill. Particular maybe structured intense training groups, learning about particular, to become a professional in a particular area. So again, these are for self-improvement type of circumstances here. Oftentimes these are done to improve your interpersonal skills, make you become more assertive, let's say. That kind of thing. So here are some of a typical sequence of events that might occur in one of these types of interpersonal learning groups. So you start with an orientation, where you get an overview, discuss the goals, what you're there for, and whatnot. Then you have the experience. Then you have the group interaction. You observe. It involves observation. It involves directly interacting. So that's the actual experience. Then after the experience, you have a discussion about it. You share your reactions to it. You're discussing it with the people you are sharing the experience. You've shared the experience with. Then after the discussion, you have an analysis where you're making sense of it. You're reflecting on it, finding meaning from those activities, drawing conclusions. And then, of course, the next step is, after you're all finished, now you want to apply it. Now you actually want to see if you can put this learning into practice in a real-world setting. Finally, support groups are another type of group that help people, that people use when they need help. And so again, these are people who are having difficulty, having problems. Now it's not like going to therapy, but they're just finding people, often peers, who are in the similar circumstances as they are, or people who are in similar circumstances but perhaps have found ways to cope with it. And people are helping each other cope, so they're all suffering from some of it. So a classic example of this would be AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. All the members are alcoholics, recovering alcoholics. They all recognize themselves. Hi, my name is Mike, I'm an alcoholic, that kind of thing. And, and again, each of these groups just has they find ways to connect to each other. These are often autonomous. They're not necessarily, they're not necessarily paying somebody to lead the group. These are often people who are, who are suffering themselves. So, for example, many substance abuse counselors, for example, are former substance abusers. And they're learning from that experience, and they are doing this, and oftentimes they're doing it as volunteers. So oftentimes these are groups that are autonomous. They often follow their perspective based, so they often follow a particular viewpoint. So AA, for example, has certain core beliefs regarding alcoholism and regarding recovery. Whether or not you agree with their approach, but that's their approach. In other words, they have their approach to what they believe alcoholism is about, what they believe are necessary steps for recovery. Okay, but again, they follow that perspective, and that's what they teach to the new members. Clearly, these are groups that are specific to a particular problem, such as alcoholism, such as substance abuse, whatnot. Interpersonal approach, the people who are members of the group establish these strong ties to each other. It's communal, so the group stresses sharing, community. As an interesting aside, you should probably, if you haven't seen it already, see the movie Fight Club. Main character in the movie was basically went to different kinds of support groups for different kinds of health-related conditions, and just to form connections with other people, to hug them and to kind of feel their pain and whatnot. He didn't actually have these conditions. He would be what he called a tourist, and he would go to these particular support groups and kind of sit in on the proceedings. So, very interesting movie, by the way. So here are some different kinds of support groups, for example. There are those that deal with mental and physical health. So if you have a particular health problem, there's a support group for you. There are people who share your condition, who are, or have family members who do, and you can join that group. So whether it be cancer, or other kinds of disease or whatever, or other kinds of mental health problems. Again, it's not therapy. You're just a support group, finding people where you can support each other. Okay, so those that are specifically for family members of people who have various conditions. There are those that are talking about their transitions from one place to another, like after divorce, for example. Advocacy, these may be groups that are getting together because they care about an important issue and they want to talk about it and try to make it publicize it and work with it. So like Mothers Against Drug Driving, for example. And finally, like addictions, again, like I mentioned, Alcoholics Anonymous. And many of these now, as we're kind of moving more online, many of them do meet online and share their support online rather than face to face. So again, those are some of the changes that may be happening with changes in technology.